What is up, guys? My name is Logan Tremellen, and this is the Defying Odds podcast. Today I have on Eric Roerig. Is that how you say your last name?
Yep.
Yeah, and Eric, in high school, he lost 100 pounds of, what would I say?
Fat.
Excess body weight.
Yes.
And then after high school, he ended up quitting his accounting job to run a 7-figure candle company.
Right.
So, Eric, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is pretty awesome to do.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So, I normally just jump right into it.
Cool.
And I think it just makes sense to talk about your life and all the adversity you faced and the crazy things that you have going on now, just in chronological order. So
Sure.
we'll start with that in high school, or basically your earliest memory of like you kind of being different, I'd say. Because
Sure.
all of us entrepreneurs are a little different. We're a little crazy. And I definitely know parts of your story where that shows. So let's start with high school. I know that you were 260 pounds freshman year. And walk me through the story.
Sure. Yeah, so I was 260 pounds my freshman year of high school. I was probably the biggest kid in high school as a freshman. Never had any girlfriends or anything like that. So, but high school was fine, and I didn't really care about high school. I almost failed out. I failed algebra 3 times. And I think I graduated 220 out of 225 or 230 like that. So really bad. Didn't really care because my dad owned his own business. He was an entrepreneur, and that's what I was going to do. I was going to lay floors for him and take over his business when I graduated. So I was like, what do I need high school for? My junior year, I started really getting into wrestling. I wrestled my freshman year, but as I got better and better, I lost more and more weight trying to make a different weight class. And then my junior year, I'd lost enough weight to be a little more attractive to the women and found a really close girlfriend of mine that really pushed me and wanted me to do more with my life. So that's where I really started buckling down in school. My senior year, of course, after high school doesn't really matter anymore for getting into college and all that. I got good grades. I did graduate. I went to a technical school and did 2 years, got my associate's degree, and got a 4.0 my first 2 years of college. Was able to go to a university and double majored in accounting and Spanish. So, yeah, it was quite a transformation, all predicated by finding a girlfriend that would really push me.
So what made you change from working for your dad and doing flooring to wanting to be an accountant?
I think really I spent all my summers laying floors and working on golf courses and all the physical labor. And as I got a little older and saw my dad get older and realized that this work kind of never ends, I wanted a different kind of career.
Yeah.
I wanted something that maybe had a retirement plan, that maybe I could work when my knees didn't work anymore, and use my mind a little bit more than my body. So
yeah, something a little bit safer.
A little safer, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's funny because that's kind of the opposite of what you do now.
Yes.
So over high school, you definitely learned just how to be healthier, and you developed a lot healthier habits just from knowing your weight. That's obviously clear.
Oh, yes.
And you decided to not do the business and get out of flooring, which I completely understand. Especially if you're doing that every single summer, you'd be sick of manual labor like that.
Absolutely.
So you become an accountant, and I know, just because I know your story, that accounting and like what you were doing as a job before you got into candle making, that helped a lot.
It did.
But how long were you an accountant? What other jobs did you do? Like things like that. And what did you learn from that experience?
Yeah. So I went to school. I got my degree in accounting, and then I studied for my CPA. So I was very fortunate enough to study nonstop and be able to study nonstop while working full time. I was in the 10% of people that passed all 4 sections of the CPA my first time. So I guess I'm good at test taking. But then as soon as I got my CPA, I quit accounting because I got a job offer from the same company as almost a promotion to get into trading. So when I started accounting, I got a job with Cargill in their cocoa and chocolate division in Lititz, Pennsylvania. And one of my main roles was the trade accountant. So I would work on position reconciliation and really work with the traders in understanding their positions, P&Ls, and all that kind of stuff. So as that progressed and learned how to trade from them in order to reconcile their positions, I was given the opportunity to learn how to trade and actually do it. So I went from counting the numbers to actually being a trader, and I did hedging, I did physical trading, did day trading, all that kind of stuff on the ICE exchange, trading cocoa beans, and went from counting money to making money. And a ton of stress, but that's where I learned all about procurement, about supply chains, about supply and demand fundamentals on positions and how commodities work. And then I went from trading to procurement managers at Godiva and at Armstrong. So I went from chocolate into flooring and ceiling tiles, and learned how to buy stuff for paint. So kind of all the fundamentals of learning how procurement works and going into anything else.
Yeah.
Just kind of learning how to buy stuff.
Yeah. And just that process just taught you a lot about business that you didn't know already.
It did. One of the cool things of procurement and accounting is you are touching every aspect of the business. So from the financial side and positions, and then also in the manufacturing side of, hey, the plant needs this and they need it by this, and so I need to cut POs, and I need to learn how to use terms to pay, to take longer to pay. And yeah, it was a really introductory business course from a holistic business standpoint, not just so focused on accounting, but it gave you a broader scope of how business works.
And was that your last job before you started candles on the side?
Yeah. So my last job, we started candles in 2017. I started corporate work in 2009. So I had 8 years in, and then did moonlighting of the candles from 2017 till 2001. And that's kind of working all day to pay the bills and then working all night to work on my dreams.
Yeah.
And
so what about making candles appealed to you? And why did you, because when talking to Katie, your wife, who's also, equal parts owner of Fontana, the candle company, she said that she really thought you were crazy when you were getting into candle making.
Yes.
Like she literally said that in an interview where she's like, I thought he was a little crazy because his desk was covered in candles. Yeah. So what appealed to you about candles? And then why were you just so committed that that was your next thing?
I think that was twofold. So one of them is candles are extremely complicated. You would not know that just lighting a candle off the shelf. But to find a vessel that makes the candle work, to find a blend that makes the candle work, to find a wick that makes the candle work, to find a fragrance load that makes the candle work, putting all those pieces together and making a high quality candle is really challenging. I had 150 different blends written down of our custom wax before I found our formula that we use today. I have zero background in chemistry, and that's all it is. So I took it on as a challenge of, I want to see if I can make this work. The other driving factor was how we started with candles was we got a big brand candle for Christmas as a gift. And if you know anything about health and toxicity in your life, fragrance and candles are a huge contributor to the toxins in our life. And when we got this big brand candle, we had splitting headaches. We didn't understand why, because we aren't prone to headaches. Doing the research, finding out how toxic candles are, really led us into, okay, well, we can do this better. And the challenge of, I want to figure out how to make this candle work, but I also want to make this work so that we can have a candle and not have the toxic load of a traditional candle in our house. It was kind of a twofold process of why was I keep pushing?
Yeah.
Why did I keep pushing for this?
It makes a lot of sense to you. One, you loved the challenge of just the complexity of candle making. And two, you obviously had years of healthy habits at this point. And then when you learned how unhealthy they were, that just kind of sparked an additional fire.
You're 100% right.
So take me into you and Katie getting into candle making, you ordering the kit, you starting as a date night. Take me through that whole process and how it actually became a real thing.
So our first thing was when we found out we wanted to do this, we bought a kit online, and anyone can buy a kit on Amazon exactly as we did. And we just started doing it date night. We made, I think, 5 or 6 candles our first date night, and it was like, okay, this is fun. So we kept on doing it every night. And as we got closer to Christmas, we started gifting our extra candles to family and friends. And it was nothing more than a gift. And the reception was pretty well. And they said, hey, we would buy these. I'm like, okay, well, let's make a few more. And we went to a local craft market, Creatively Lancaster, which is a little craft market that's exploded in recent years. But we went there for our first show, and I don't remember how many candles we sold, but we sold about $800 worth. And we just were amazed that we could make these candles on our stovetop and sell $800 worth on a Saturday. And that's where it really started was, okay, well, let's keep doing these shows. Let's do a little bit more sophisticated process of planning and manufacturing and procurement. And let's see if I can bring in some corporate knowledge to this business and grow it. And in 5 years, now we're at $1 million company with 9 employees in a factory that everything is hand poured.
So you definitely skipped in that story right there. You skipped, obviously, you getting started to now how massive of a company you guys are.
Yeah.
What were some of the challenges that you had to overcome when growing a candle company to a hobby to now a 7-figure business?
That's a really funny question because every day is a new one. Every day, Katie and I say, it's going to get easier. This is going to get easier. And some aspects of the business have gotten easier, but then it adds a different challenge. Mm-hmm. So when we started, we were building candles out of little Presto pots. We melt 6 pounds of wax at a time, and we'd pour it in one at a time. Today, we have 6 vats that melt 150 pounds each, and we run through them every day. And so understanding the scaling process of manufacturing was a challenge. How do we make more candles with our given time? And then it became, okay, well, how are we going to store all the raw materials to make all of these? Because just-in-time inventory doesn't really work for us because we don't buy enough to do just-in-time inventory. So we had to store it all. Okay, well, how are we going to keep track of all the stuff that we have? How are we going to keep track of what needs to be made? How are we going to keep track of what's selling? And as we grew into those growing pains, then it kind of shifted. Okay, now we understand how our process works for making candles. Okay, now we understand how we're going to track inventory. Okay, now we're going to understand how we do our production schedule. Okay, easy. Now how are we going to sell all these things? Katie's really into marketing. She's grown her Instagram following. I think she's got 37,000 followers now or something on Instagram. And how are we going to grow that? What was our niche? How did we differentiate ourselves? Because if you go to any market, there's a dozen candle manufacturers. It's crazy how easy it is and the low barriers to entry there is in a candle business. And what we thought was, okay, well, we're going to use our healthy lifestyle as our why. We want to educate other people on how toxic fragrance is, and we want to be their solution. And that's what we did. So we started using beeswax, coconut oil, and essential oil in all of our candles. We are a made safe company that is third-party verified that we are non-toxic, and that was our niche. So scaling from how do we do it, how do we grow, how do we sell it, that was one growing pain. Now our most recent one is how do we have all the people to do that for us? There's 9 of us, and I don't know anything about HR, and I learn every day that managing employees at every level of a company is a hugely challenging aspect that no one ever talks about unless you're in HR. Mm-hmm. And so as we've grown, as we've scaled, new challenges happen every day. One of our biggest ones now is how do we handle customer service tickets? We feel we have a pretty good product, but the more you sell, the more customers you have, the more there is opportunity to complain.
Yeah.
So even if we have a 1% complaint rate, if you're selling 1,000 candles, that's 10 customers. Okay, now multiply that by 100,000, 200,000, whatever you grow to. How do you handle that volume? So it's funny just watching the shifts of what our issues were in the past to what they are now.
Yeah. I've learned one thing from Tony Robbins. It's that most people believe they're not supposed to have challenges, but you are. And I think he says what if your biggest problem is that you believe you're not supposed to have any? Most people believe they're not supposed to have any, when in reality, the people with the greatest quality of lives tend to just be better at dealing with greater quality of problems.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's super. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm a huge fan of Tony Robbins. I remember listening to a memory tape of him back in college. and he is super insightful. And I don't know if it was him, but he said something about life isn't about avoiding challenges. It's how you face those challenges.
Yeah.
And you're 100% right. It's what kind of fun would that be? And how would you learn if you never faced any challenge?
Exactly. Yeah. Nobody watches the movies without a big challenge.
Right.
If it was just a happy life the whole time, then there'd be nothing interesting.
Exactly.
So what was the greatest thing that you personally learned over the past 5 years of building the company? Like the biggest thing that you've,
So I'm an extremely calculated, risk-adverse person. Leaving corporate and the safety of corporate with a recurring paycheck, benefits, retirement, healthcare, all that stuff, and going out on my own with my wife was a huge challenge. And it probably took about 6 months before we really, okay, let's do this. So I think the biggest thing I've learned is trying to check my conservatism in my risk profile. So trying to take more risks, trying to be more experimental in what kind of things I want to try and do. So I don't know if it's like a concrete textbook thing I've learned. It's just maybe something I've learned about myself and that I'm trying to change. Because doing the safe thing won't get me anywhere where I want to go. So trying to be a little more dangerous, I guess.
Yeah. And this I found was very interesting when I came to your guys' manufacturing facility for the first time, is that some of your most popular candles were just things that I've never even heard of, and you didn't even hear of them before you started producing them. So I guess, how did you find what the consumer thought was most interesting? I think this answer may actually help a lot of other people in business, because it was things that you never realized would be a good seller now are, your biggest.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of changed as we've grown as well. So one of the biggest things we learned when we were a young company, small company, is when we did our trade shows, we were face to face with the customer. We got to see them interact with the product. We got to see their face expression when they stuck their face into a candle and smelt it, and whether or not it was a good reaction or not. That helped us kind of tailor, do we need more floral scents? Do we need more masculine scents? Do we need more fruity scents? Do we need more citrus scents? Do we need any more earthy scents? And kind of helped us drive that aspect of the company and our scent profiles. And now today, where we have a larger portfolio of people from Instagram and emails and online, and the capability to do surveys, our reach and scope is so much broader that we can just actually talk to them through these channels and get their feedback. So, for example, our Blue Tansy candle, which is one of my favorites, and it's a huge seller. But the oil itself, the Blue Tansy oil, is about $750 a pound. Comparing that to like a good lavender at $50 a pound, I was like, there is no way people are going to sell this, but they're not going to buy this. The price point would be huge. But Blue Tansy in the natural health space, and the people who use EOs and understand them, Blue Tansy was huge. It was everywhere. And so after about 5 months of Katie trying to push me to develop something with this, I did it. And we sold out in, I think, 4 days. I was like, I don't understand our consumer at all. But that's where that understanding and looking at the market and actually talking to our customers and then analyzing the sales data. Okay, well, there's something else to learn. And my preconceived notions of our customer are wrong. And I actually just have to listen to the customer and what they're buying.
Yeah.
So that's been an interesting insight and shift from in-person to, okay, let's look at data and talk to them via these social channels.
So you guys have built up a massive company over the past 5 years since you started. It's very impressive. But do you guys have a vision? Do you guys have a future that you want to make reality with Fontana?
Yeah, I kind of equate Fontana and fragrance in general as what organic was in the 90s and 2000s. So you and I are very in tune with health and our body and nutrition. That was that really came from a journey, I think, from where organic started. If you think about where organic was in food in the early 90s, 2000s, people thought, why am I going to pay an extra $5 a pound for strawberries for organic? It's food. Fast forward to today where organic is everything. People fully understand what organic means. They understand that quality of the food matters to your health. What you eat impacts your daily life, impacts your health, and is really everything. And we want Fontana to be what organic was in the 90s and is today for fragrance. We want people to understand what you breathe is just as important to your health as what you eat. And that is where we want to use Fontana as an education company that eliminate fragrance from your life, whether that be in candles, whether that be in deodorants, whether that be in room sprays, laundry detergents, you name it, the plugins. We want people to know how toxic those things are for you. And that's really what we want Fontana to be, is that sounding board and that education board for people to have a more complete, holistic, healthy lifestyle.
Makes a lot of sense. I definitely think you guys are on track with that, especially now, just listening to what you have in store for like ideas for, content and things that you want to share outside of just selling candles.
Yeah.
So next I want to go into a little bit the story of your ankle experience and your past few years of recovery. I can obviously relate to this a lot with all of my health adversity.
Very much
So just take me through the story of what happened and just overcoming all of it.
Yeah, I would say I was very fortunate that my injury was never life-threatening, which for you or anyone else that I am completely belittling my injury because that's nothing compared to what it could have been. But I shattered my ankle. I was actually at CrossFit climbing. I was probably at the peak of my fitness. I was training 6 days a week. I had ambitions to be competitive, and I fell. My foot was at the 11-foot line on a wall when I was climbing a pegboard, and I fell. I landed right on my ankle, and I stood there. And I thought I sprained it. So I tried to walk and realized that I probably didn't sprain it. Had Katie come pick me up and took me to the doctor, went to urgent care because it still was like, this isn't that bad. And they told me real quick that, yeah, you should go to the ER. Went to the ER, did an MRI, everything else, talked to the doctor, and he said, yeah, we're going to have surgery. And this was over the 4th of July, over 2020 COVID lockdown. So all sorts of protocols, waiting, COVID tests, all this stuff. And after a 10-day wait from time of breaking to surgery, I had major surgery. I think I have 18 pins in my leg, 2 screws, a K-wire, a bar, some donor bone, and 2 major incisions to fix it all. The doctor said, well, you might not ever walk normally again because your joint isn't really functioning like a joint. But we got it as best we could, and for a bomb going off in your ankle, it should be okay. So I was like, okay, well, going from peak of fitness to I can't walk or might not ever be able to walk normally again was a little devastating, but I don't ever really recall being terribly down. I think I just always felt like what else am I going to do? It was my left leg, so I can still drive. I can still feed myself. I can still go to the bathroom. I can still shower. And so it never was a life-altering thing for me. It didn't seem like at the time. But through about a year of painful recovery, that was not expected at all. I actually thought I was going to be back doing CrossFit in 3 months. And I was barely walking at 3 months. That was kind of a check. That was a tough one looking back. But I think it was actually supposed to happen because when I look at where I was, my life was dedicated to the gym. I had my job. I did candles on the side, and I did fitness. That's what I did. And that was really before Fontana was really taking off. And I think that was just God saying, you got to slow down on this and I'm going to take you out. And he broke my one appendage that allowed me to still work at my corporate job, wouldn't have any major long life altering issues, and just said, nope, you're not going to do this anymore. And took me out, and it was the best thing that's happened. I've shifted my focus from the gym to the company. And
so after that injury, that's when you made the decision to leave your corporate job?
So it wasn't quite. It was, so I broke my ankle June 29th of 2020, and I left corporate on March of 2021. So it was about a year after.
Yeah.
But I made the decision. I gave my notice the Monday after Thanksgiving to my boss. I gave him like a 5-month notice that I was quitting. So
yeah,
I was fortunate enough to give him that long notice. So it was pretty close, because right after I broke my ankle and I was able to walk and stand again for at least an hour, we got a huge PO from a company that we didn't know. They put in an order that was about equal to the first year's revenue. So
Jeez.
We got a $30,000 PO from some random person. We're like, oh my gosh, how are we going to fulfill this?
Yeah,
like,
good thing you could walk.
Yeah, exactly. So it was, that was really the turning point for us, and really the drive to have me quit corporate was getting that PO and saying, okay, this might be a legitimate business now.
So not how late, but how soon after your surgery do you start back in the gym and then go over where you're at now? They said you might not be able to walk again. How's your mobility now? Is it, fully back?
So it's not fully back. I had my surgery on July 10th, and I was back in the gym. I think I could handle the pain. It was probably February of the next year. And if you've ever had any kind of joint surgery and bone surgery, the swelling is about 16 months to go down.
Jeez.
And I still have zero mobility in my ankle. I didn't have good mobility before, but now I really don't. So I pay a lot of attention when I'm squatting, making sure that I'm not favoring one side over the other. But yeah, there's still complications I have doing any kind of squat, snatch, clean, all that stuff. So yeah, it's still a really big challenge, but fortunately I'm not in the competitive mind for CrossFit anymore. Been able to shift that to the business, and probably something a little bit better of an outlook for my future than trying to be a competitive CrossFit athlete.
Yeah. So I think honestly, one of my final questions or topics that I want to talk about is, you just brought it up earlier saying that you think it happened for a reason that you hurt your ankle. Mm-hmm. And it seems like that kind of comes up. I mean, that was the most clear area where you said that everything happens for a reason. Mm-hmm. Like, I am a true believer that everything happens for a reason.
100%.
But that stood out to me. But I want to relate that to just your daily mindset. Even before we ever talked, it was very, I don't know, there's like you just have an energy. You're always super happy. You're always smiling. You're always upbeat and positive. Why is that? I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I'm curious.
I don't know, actually. That's actually something I've been really working on. I don't want to say not being happy, but not being so positive. And maybe I'm going to be a little cautious in saying that. Yeah. But it's so much easier to be happy. Like, control what you can control and don't worry about what you can't, because there's nothing you're going to do about it. Mm-hmm. And so wasting energy on worrying, wasting energy on thinking what could happen. Yeah, okay, I spend 5 seconds I create a risk mitigation strategy and I move on. You have to think about it. You have to be aware of what could happen, but plan for it and then move on. Don't wish it into existence that this is going to happen, because you're just going to be wasting energy and you're going to make yourself miserable.
Yeah.
So, it's just easier to be happy and positive.
Yeah. And that might be the answer to why you're always like that, is because what you focus on, you feel, and you obviously don't focus on things that are outside of your control.
That's right.
Tony Robbins, he walks you through an exercise where everybody who's depressed, every single person in the world who's depressed, they do the same things with their language. They do the same things with their body. They breathe the same way. They think of the same things. Like they're focusing on things that they can't control. Whereas the opposite, people like you, people like I, we're the opposite. We're normally breathing deeper, or normally sitting up straighter, or normally focusing on things we can control.
Right.
And it comes down to, what is it? He has a triad that is your like consistent emotions, and it's physiology, how you're moving, like how you're standing, things like that. Focus, what you're focusing on, and the meaning that you give things. That's the triangle that creates all of emotion in your life. And it's predictable. Like before you even ask somebody how they feel, just by looking at their body language, you can know how they feel.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's very true.
It's insane.
It's very true. Yeah.
So I think that's the answer, because I don't think I've ever seen you slouch down or not moving or, not being in a good, state.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah.
I think I picked that up from you really early, because I was trying to remember the first time I met you, knew of you. It was at the gym right after you, I think, got out of the hospital and you promoted your story. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
How the heck is this kid still here doing these things? And and it was like it's an instant connection, just hanging out and talking with you and being able now to have you at Fontana and me be able to sit here and work with you. Like, yeah, those personalities attract. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's super cool to be that way. And on days that I am down, on days that I don't feel happy, it's just terrible. I don't know how people live their lives like that the whole time. Like, that's just got to be miserable.
It's their baseline. That some people don't know any different.
Yeah, that's true. And I think, though, to your point of looking back when I was 260 pounds and miserable, looking back, now I understand how miserable I was.
Yeah.
And there's days that I wish I could have a pizza still and eat it. But I know I would feel so physically gross. I don't want to do it anymore. It's just not worth it. I love feeling good. I love being able to move. I love sleeping at night. I love not taking medications. I love being able to live life.
Yeah, I feel a very similar way about life in general.
Yeah.
And we definitely seem like we have a lot of similar beliefs. One thing, when you said, when you first saw my story and you were in the gym, sidebar, one of my favorite reactions from any human ever was when I talked to Febs for the first time about joining the gym. Because this was like not long after I had surgery and I was very skinny. I was like probably 110, 120 pounds, really no muscle yet, because I was just at this time like building up to walking and running.
Right.
And when I met her, she's like, "Are you sure you can start working out?" Like I could see like she even told me, she's like, "I was scared when you started here." I'm like, "No, I can for sure." And she told me, she's like, "You were very committed and it didn't seem like you should have been." But
because I think, when did you came right after they bought the gym, like 2019?
I think so, yeah.
And I just started coaching there again, and I walked in and I saw you and I thought the very same thing. I didn't know any of your story other than what I'd watched. And I was like, okay. I saw you sitting on the bike. And I remember you riding the bike for probably a half hour. I was like, oh, man, that kid is determined. It was super cool, even then, to see it.
Yeah. When I got healthy, I'm like, I need to join the best gym that I know of.
Yeah.
And I just did research on the best gyms, and CrossFit Collective seemed like the best. I joined there, and it was a year and a half of just pure packing on pounds.
Yeah.
Like Dana calls me meat there because he's never seen a human put on muscle as fast as I did. But obviously there was a lot of other factors that went into that. My body was already ready for muscle. I already had the physiology. I just had to put in the work. Yeah. Eat the food.
Yeah, right. It's super cool. And I think that's one of the cool things of being at a gym like that, is watching stories from someone being sick and 100 pounds, building muscle back, to a guy I coach now that's 400 pounds and is coming down to that from 500 pounds. And just the aspect of how that can change your life, whatever spectrum you're on.
Yeah.
your health is everything. Like, I want to make a big company. I want to have a big company, but I want to educate people on what it's like to be healthy first.
Yeah.
Like, that to me is just living that healthy lifestyle, and being able to live is far more important than any kind of dollar I'll ever earn.
And I think that's a pretty great spot to end it. Is there anything
Cool.
else you want to talk about?
No, that was cool. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we covered everything.
Okay. Cool.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
thanks so much for coming on, Eric.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Sweet.